Yeah,
Okay,
sounds like it.
two things. Hank, you had a question,
Yeah.
Procedural, and so.
Well, we've seen the pictures from McAllen, Texas, with Vice President Pence and Senator Graham standing in that holding area with all of those folks who've been detained for at least 40 days,
Right.
unbathed, just horrible. So the question that has come up in our discussions is, with your experience in the House, as president, what would you do to curtail the and help defund federal agencies that create these cruel and inhuman conditions?
Yeah. I think a lot about this, and I was just listening to an interview with Representative Ocasio-Cortez, who was talking about disbanding the entire Department of Homeland Security. Others have talked about abolishing ICE. That may very well be a path to get to the goal. But I was in that McAllen Border Patrol station more than a year ago in the wake of the zero tolerance policy, where every single family that was apprehended in between ports of entry was separated. And I remember being in a cell full of women, very young mothers with their very young children, Olympia's age. And some of them too young, the mothers too young to be able to speak to me legally. They were 16, 17 years old. But I remember talking to one mother, asked her why she left Honduras, talked about some of these conditions that Martha described, and she did not know that within hours she would be separated from that daughter for whom she risked her life. And when we left, I asked the Border Patrol agent in charge, I said, how does that make you feel? That it's just devastating to hear that. You're a mother, she had told me about her kids, you're a mother as well, that's gotta really hurt you. And she said something really interesting to me. She said, you know, I think we're doing these kids a favor. These are bad parents. Anyone who would subject their child to that journey it is inherently bad, and we're gonna basically save these kids. And you know, I've thought about that a lot since, and I've come to a place where I can not judge her for saying that. She's got a job to do, and she had to rationalize how she was able to do this. You know, are Germans inherently evil? How do humans, how does civilization, how does this country get to a place where you put kids in cages, where you justify the deaths of 6 children in our custody, where you separate families? So beyond the infrastructure and the agencies and the personnel, you know, a president who's described asylum seekers as an infestation, which is a very Third Reich, dehumanizing, subhuman way to make it okay to treat somebody less than human, or immigrants as rapists and criminals. I think a lot of that starts with the leadership and the permission given to follow our worst impulses or rationalize our worst practices and policies. So as president, I would like to very strongly talk about how immigrants are not something to be tolerated or even respected, but embraced because their very presence makes us stronger and more successful and safer and more secure. And then that has to follow in our practices. So not criminally prosecuting anyone who seeks asylum or shelter or safety in this country, immediately ending all for-profit contracts for immigrant detention. There's a profit motive to what we're doing in this country right now. Releasing the vast majority of those who are detained right now, and I mean almost, except for some exceptional cases, into a community-based family case management program. Having a new visa category so that this church or this community could sponsor refugees and asylum seekers without adding a dime to federal taxpayer obligation. This community, El Paso, Texas, can choose to stand up and welcome refugees. And we've got the capacity, we want to do the right thing. My administration will allow communities to be able to do that. So I do want to abolish the worst practices of ICE and DHS and CBP and HHS and Office of Refugee Resettlement, all of whom are culpable for what we're seeing right now. But I really think it demands a change in leadership at the top and an understanding in our country just how bad this has become. And if I could just say one thing, as bad as it is at this moment, I mentioned the more than 400,000 deportations in just 1 year of the Obama administration. I remember going to a deportation camp in Artesia, New Mexico. It's about a 3-hour drive from El Paso. This was in the Obama administration, and the ICE officials who were managing that facility said, our orders are to make this place so miserable that people self-deport, and they send a message back not to make this journey. And again, I heard people within the administration rationalizing this. It's a very dangerous journey. We don't want families to make it. We're going to make conditions so miserable here that they don't attempt this journey or these crossings. But we should also know that in the last 20 years, more than 8,000 people have died making the crossing into the United States. As we have built walls and fences and militarized, we have created profound suffering and death, not caged, not separated, but dead. So there's a, in my opinion, a much larger picture to how we have managed immigration and our connection to the rest of the world at the U.S.-Mexico border. I hope coming from there and having that perspective, I can help this country to get onto the right track when it comes to these issues.
Thanks.